I have a habit of collecting Xerjoff fragrance samples. I don't think there are many other brands in my collection that I can say I have more samples than compared to what I have from Xerjoff. I have a ton, and there are a few reasons behind this. Xerjoff is such an iconic fragrance brand. They've been around for so long. They have such a history, and they definitely have some really beautiful and iconic fragrances that are the inspiration for so many other fragrances in the industry. Herbe Pura is a standard for fruity fragrances, as is La Capitale with a combination of strawberry and leather. Lyra is known to be such a classic when it comes to that gourmand lemon trend. There's so many famous Xerjoff fragrances, but me personally, whenever I've gone into a boutique, I've always been really curious about what the sales associates think is their favorite fragrances, but specifically, what do they love that not a lot of other people talk about. So in this video, I decided to pick out 10 of my fragrance samples slash decants from Xerjoff. I am continually dropping these samples. So I decided to pick up 10 of these samples slash some decants to share with you today. These are some really viral ones and some perfumes or fragrances that you might not have never heard of, but the point of this video is to introduce some of these fragrances to you. Some of these I like more than others, but keep in mind these are samples, so I'm going to be giving you my general impressions on these and hopefully introduce you to some fragrances that might not be on your radar, but if you are someone who's looking to explore Xerjoff further, these might be some fragrances for you to try. If this is your first time on this channel, hello, my name is Anya. I love fragrances. I talk about them here 5 times a week, Monday through Friday. I also publish additional content on TikTok and Instagram under the username ANECHKAFRAGRANCES. And if you're interested in fragrance history, I do have a podcast called The Fragrance Report. I launch a new podcast episode every Wednesday here on YouTube and also on Spotify. So if you've ever been intrigued by fragrance history and you want to learn more, definitely check out that podcast. So yes, I do have these samples here. I have collected these samples over the years and I realized that I never really talked about them, and I figured might as well talk about them. But I will say, as I mentioned before, these are samples. So I'm not about to pretend that I am going to have an intimate level of knowledge when it comes to each and every single one of these perfumes. I can speak to the general sense of each fragrance, but I can't be super informative with you about the sillage, about the longevity, about the general experience of all these fragrances. For that, I would highly recommend looking to other reviewers. But if you are like me and you're generally curious about the house, you have a fascination with it and you're genuinely interested in finding out some more, then definitely watch this video. Like I said, I have some popular ones that I've never really talked about that I do have opinions on, and I also have some fragrances that are a little bit lesser known, so let's get into it. So let's get started with a fragrance from the Cosmorati line. This is the affordable version of Xerjoff fragrances. This is also where they have a lot of really popular viral releases like Lyra, Dolce Amalfi, Italica. These are some really top sellers from Xerjoff. You might have already heard of them, especially if you're interested in niche fragrances. But the one I want to kick things off with today is my little decant of Lyra. This is a really classic fragrance. It smells like lemon cheesecake, to put it very simply. It's a really beautiful gourmand and it's a favorite for a reason. This is probably one of the fragrances that you could feel pretty comfortable with blind buying. I mean, obviously you must try all the fragrances before you blind buy them, but it's a really easy fragrance to love, and it's a soft gourmand. It's nothing too sweet. It's really beautiful, and I can see why so many people love this. This has top notes of blood orange, bergamot, and lavender, a mid of cinnamon, licorice, and jasmine, and then a base of vanilla, caramel, and musk. Again, to put it very simply, it smells like lemon cheesecake. I will say the reason why I have the decant and not the full size is because I try to really focus my attention on the fragrances that not a lot of people talk about. So while I really love this fragrance, I have some other lemony gourmands in my collection. So I've always really been curious about trying some of the other Xerjoff fragrances that are a little bit less known. And some of the fragrances in this video are on my wish list, so I'll tell you about them. But all in all, this is a really good one. I like it, but it's not my absolute favorite from the house. Another really popular one that I also have a decant for is Naxos, and you can definitely tell how much I love this by the fact that I have used up nearly half of my decant. I went through a phase where I was obsessed with this fragrance, and this is a really beautiful unisex perfume with notes of lemon, I think there's citrus in here, lavender and honey, but there's a very light touch of honey. It's nothing too overbearing. This has notes of lavender, bergamot, and lemon at the top, amid a honey, cinnamon, cashmere, and jasmine sambac, and then a base of tobacco leaf, vanilla, and tonka bean. Something I haven't mentioned in this video so far is Xerjoff is known for having this really beautiful kind of fruity musk in most, if not all, their fragrances. That's their signature, that's what they're known for, and that musk permeates through so many of their fragrances, and you can definitely smell that in here as well. It's a really smooth and beautiful, well-blended perfume. Something that I love about all the Xerjoff fragrances is even the ones that are a little bit spicier are still really soft. You can tell that the quality is there when it comes to Xerjoff. A lot of these fragrances have cinnamon, which is a note that I tend to be really cautious with. And when it comes to a Xerjoff fragrance, that cinnamon is going to be really beautiful. It's going to be very soft. It's not going to be too much. And I can't really say that for I can't say that for every other fragrance that features cinnamon, you know? But this is a light, beautiful fragrance with so much going on, but it's very well blended. And I will say I would call this a moderate performer. I mean, I've worn this fragrance a few times. I mean, as you can probably tell with this decant, I would say this is a moderate performing fragrance. In my opinion, it's kind of like a step up in terms of uniqueness compared to Lyra, but it's very unisex. If I had to choose which one I like more, this or Lyra, I'd probably say this one, because I feel like Lyra has been so overplayed, and not for any bad reason, but I would say this is probably my preference because it's a little bit more unique, it's a little bit more aromatic, but I really do think that both fragrances are really, really good. So another fragrance from the Cosmorati line is 1888. This is what I'd call a unisex fragrance from them. This is a little bit more spicy, a little bit more probably better suited for the colder weather actually, but this has top notes of carnation, pepper, coriander, and saffron, a mid of ylang-ylang, rose, and neroli, and then a base of amber, sandalwood, birch, and patchouli. Again, even though this perfume does have spicy notes, it's not like a scratchy spiciness. It's really refined, it's really beautiful, very smooth. This is kind of what a holiday would smell like if you're cozy, if you're inside in the wintertime. And I definitely do think that when it comes to Xerjoff in general, people spend a lot of time paying attention to the gourmands, but they really do so many other categories quite well, and this is one of them. This is a spicy fragrance. Yes, it has some florals in there, but I definitely do think that this perfume celebrates the spices more than anything. But it's a smooth level of spice. It's nothing scratchy. There's black pepper in here, which normally I would be a little bit cautious of, but in this case, it's beautifully done. So yeah, it's a gorgeous fragrance. I like this one more. I would say, you know, like the whole trend that is kind of inspired by Angel's Share by Kilian, that boozy spiciness. I feel like that's just been so overplayed at this point that if I had to choose a fragrance that's kind of adjacent to that, I'd probably go for this one, because this is kind of like that boozy spiciness without the sweetness that's so common in a lot of the fragrances that have that boozy spiciness. This isn't boozy in the sense that this is in the fragrance pyramid, but I kind of do get some booziness with this, but it's more spicy than anything, but it's a very smooth spiciness. I really like this. You can tell that I really like this fragrance. It's quite beautiful. Next, I have two fragrances from the Join the Club collection. This is also known as the JTC collection. This is a line from Xerjoff in which they don't necessarily tell you what the notes are. The notes are actually very secret. They're top secret. So what you see on Fragrantica is an educated guess on what the notes could be, but this collection is very secretive when it comes to the notes. So we have two fragrances. I have Ivory Root and Comandante. So Ivory Root, first off, is a perfume that's very much a kind of powdery vanilla almost, but nothing like too powdery. It's a smooth powdery vanilla with some patchouli. The patchouli is not too earthy, but Fragrantica says that this has spicy notes, sandalwood, allspice, patchouli, and basil. I get vanilla with this. And again, that's open to interpretation. Highly suggest you look at some other reviewers as well. But this is the kind of perfume that I think would be a really good, like, day-to-day fragrance. This is inspired by travel as well. That's what Ivory Root is supposed to mean. But just by reading the notes on Fragrantica, it sounds intimidating. But in my personal opinion, it isn't. It's just a vanilla patchouli with some spiciness to it, some light spiciness. This is what I would easily qualify as an everyday, like day-to-day fragrance. Yeah, it's really approachable, and I can smell the sandalwood, especially in the dry down. I did spray these over an hour ago, but the sandalwood is definitely prominent. So if you like sandalwood, this is a really good one. But don't let the other kind of spicy notes intimidate you with this fragrance. Next, we have Comandante, also from the same collection. Again, these notes are vaulted. Fragrantica says this contains fruity notes, tobacco, floral notes, honey, vanilla, cedar, leather, spicy notes, patchouli, and labdanum. To my nose, well, I believe this is supposed to emulate what a cigar lounge would smell like. And I definitely get that. It smells slightly tobacco-y, but there's definitely a woody touch to it. You don't necessarily smell straight up tobacco here. You smell the leather in the space you would be in if it was like a gentleman's club, cigar lounge. You smell the wood paneling. This would be a really great fragrance on a guy. Like, this would be a really great kind of like very versatile fragrance for a guy, in my opinion, and also for a feminine leaning person as well. Yeah, there's something unique to this. It's a really intriguing fragrance. It's kind of like a drier tobacco fragrance. I don't get the fruitiness in here. Personally, I don't get the fruitiness. But then again, these notes are vaulted, so even what's on Fragrantica might not be what this fragrance is. I maybe get like a hint of honey, but it's nothing overt, nothing compared to Naxos. Naxos is like that honey with the citruses. This is just leather, labdanum, tobacco. The honey is probably there to kind of counteract the more animalic notes, to provide an accent maybe. But this is definitely not too sweet. And I honestly don't get the fruits here. I like it. I think this would be better on a guy personally. This is not a fragrance that I would wear personally, but I can appreciate this fragrance as well. It's a really interesting one. So next up is a fragrance that is on my wish list. I smelled this and it was love at first sight. I smelled it about a year ago. I adore this perfume. I love this perfume. It's also one of the more expensive ones from Xerjoff, which, I mean, it's not like the most expensive one. That's Pico Valladama. Pico Valladama is expensive. This one is not that level, but it's also nothing to scoff at. I think it's like full price. It's like $500, which again is nothing to scoff at. But this is Alexandria 2 Anniversary Edition. This has top notes of lavender, Bulgarian, rose, cardamom, and cumin. A mid of oud, amber, cypriot oil, civet, orris, wormwood, mint, and clary sage. And then a base of Australian sandalwood, vanilla, and musk. This is like the ideal oud fragrance for me. It's a clean oud, maybe a touch of animalic notes, but nothing too extreme. It just smells like an amazing oud fragrance. And the bottle, might I add? I mean, all these bottles are amazing. I don't have the bottles in front of me, of course, but I have, I love the bottles from Xerjoff. I think they're gorgeous, but this one specifically, like the Alexandria 2 Anniversary Edition bottle, is gorgeous. It's like this beautiful chocolatey brown color with gold accents. Stunning. I'm trying to find something that would possibly be like a more inexpensive alternative to this, because I really love this and I want to get it like now, but it's also like $500 full price. Well, okay, also it's not like the most, I can probably get it at a discounter, of course, naturally. Regardless, it's on my wish list. It's amazing. It's amazing, and it's also one of the more potent fragrances in this entire video. I will say that for a fact because I have 2 samples from this fragrance, and I actually have had a chance to do wear tests on them. Like that's how potent it is. Like, and to be honest, when it comes to getting any expensive fragrance, like I've said this before and I'll say it again, if a fragrance is more powerful, if a fragrance is longer lasting, I feel better about spending a lot of money on it, because I know that I'm going to be able to make that fragrance last for a really long time. And this perfume might be expensive, but the longevity is there. The sillage is there. Some of these other fragrances are really beautiful, but I can't really get as much experience with the sample. With this, I can. And I don't know, there's something about, like, if a fragrance is going to be expensive, you might as well get, like, the full experience with it, especially if you're not planning on buying, like, dozens of niche fragrances a year. If you're only going to buy a few, it might as well be something that you really love, and this is something I really love. I just love this fragrance. It's amazing. It's gorgeous. Yeah, I'm going to have this in my collection at some point, just not today, but it's beautiful. Something that I see as kind of an alternative to Alexandria Anniversary Edition is this gorgeous scent, which is Richwood. This is from the Stone label collection, and this actually came out in 2010. So it's been around for a little bit. It's a woody patchouli fragrance. So this has top notes of tangerine, grapefruit, and bergamot, and mid of rose and black currant, and then a base of patchouli, sandalwood, vanilla, labdanum, and musk. Obviously, this has a lot of diversity. The citruses at the top are beautiful. This is the dry down, of course, but this is woody. This has that focus, of course, but there's more nuance to it. There's more of like a journey to it. It's definitely not just focused on the woods. I like this fragrance a lot. It's beautiful. So it definitely takes you through a journey. You get the citruses, you get the florals, and then you get the beautiful dry down with the sandalwood. So when it comes to the Xerjoff fragrances that I can picture myself really being obsessed with, I would go between Alexandria 2 Anniversary and this one. Okay, another fragrance that I am really curious about, and this is one that I do want to get a decant for. I do want to sit with this fragrance because I will tell you right now, I don't think the sample is enough to experience this fragrance. And I can say that about all these fragrances, to be honest. Yes, some of these I have decants for, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, some of these are samples. A lot of these are samples. It's hard to tell the whole story of a fragrance with just a sample. You can kind of get the highlights, but this is one that I want to understand more, and I feel like I should get a decant for this, but I also want to talk about this fragrance to introduce it to you guys, because I think that if you like Iris, you will like this, because it literally, this is called Iris with 3 S's at the end. So this has carrot seeds, carnation, and bergamot at the top, a mid of iris, violet, rose, and jasmine, and then a base of musk, vetiver, cedar, and incense. I remember going into the Xerjoff boutique. I went on a trip to Italy, and I went to several Xerjoff boutiques, so that's partially why I was able to accumulate all these samples. And I was asking the associate to give me like her favorite Xerjoffs that people don't talk about, and this was one that she recommended. I interpret this as a celebration of like a powdery iris / violet scent. I can't really detect whether it's kind of like a cosmetic violet, kind of slightly, but yeah, this is one that I want to experience a little bit further. I can't really say too much else about it, but I just want to put it on y'all's radar. If you like powdery florals, this might be one to try. because I don't think I've ever really heard anyone talk about this. Next up, we have the Torino fragrances. I have two of them, Torino 21 and Torino 2022. These are fragrances that are inspired by the tennis match, the ATP tennis match, I think, in Turin, that takes place every year. And they come out with a new fragrance to commemorate that annually. So let's first talk about Torino 21. You might have heard Demi Rawling talk about this. She made it go pretty viral. But this is a beautiful, fresh, aromatic, citrusy, kind of spicy fragrance, or fresh spicy fragrance, with notes of mint, lemon, basil, and thyme at the top, a mid of blackcurrant, lavender, rosemary, and jasmine, and then a base of lemon, verbena, and musk. I see why this went viral. It's a beautiful fragrance. Again, it has like that very well blended signature that's present in so many of the Xerjoff fragrances. And it's a mint that's not too overt. I definitely get kind of like the lemon essence, like the lemon verbena essence throughout this fragrance. This is going to be your old money, high quality, classic, summery fragrance. It's really beautiful. I get why it's so popular. Something that's a little bit less renowned is Torino 22. This is a fragrance that I remember when I first smelled this like ages ago. I got Baccarat Rouge 540 vibes from it, and I think it's because of the ethyl maltol. I don't know if they have that listed. I doubt they do. But this has top notes of eucalyptus, saffron, and bergamot, a mid of mate, clary sage, and gaiac wood, and then a base of dry wood and musk. I know that when people think of Baccarat Rouge 540, they think of saffron. The kind of like musky signature that you get from Baccarat Rouge is actually because of ethyl maltol, which is a synthetic ingredient that provides that signature muskiness. So I think they also put that in Torino 22 because I can definitely identify this as kind of being Baccarat Rouge 540 adjacent. Not like siblings, but distant cousins many times removed. So I remember when I first smelled this, I couldn't really get over the fact that it reminded me of Baccarat Rouge 540 so much. But smelling it again, it's more like it's its own fragrance, but I can see the similarities. So yeah, I like it. If I had to choose between the two, I would say Torino 21 is probably my favorite because that's just the one that I could picture myself wearing more regularly because it just generally smells amazing. Both of them smell really good, don't get me wrong. But I would see, like, I see Torino 21 as being kind of like the all-encompassing summer icon, I guess. Torino 2022, or Torino 22, it's nice, but I don't love it as much as Torino 21. Both of them are really good, but just letting you know, Torino 22 smells a little bit like Baccarat Rouge, still has some of those aromatic touches that's present in the Torino line, but kind of Baccarat Rouge 540. So next, I have Cruz del Sur 1. This is not Cruz del Sur 2. I probably have that sample somewhere, but this is the Cruz del Sur 1 version. So this is actually a fragrance that I smelled, and this was another love for me. And then I looked at the notes, and I'm like, okay, I understand why this was a love, because this does feature boozy notes. It features leather. This is such an intriguing fragrance, and I actually thought of adding this to my wish list as well, and it might as well be on there. But do I need another leather fragrance? Probably not. But I know I really love this fragrance because of that leather. It's like that refined leather. It's not too animalic. It's very clean. There's also labdanum in here, which I love, but there are a lot of notes, so let's get into it. We have top notes of rum, grapes, and bergamot, a mid of dried fruits, cloves, cumin, cedar, and cinnamon, and then a base of leather, castoreum, myrrh, incense, labdanum, amber, and sandalwood. This is for those of us who really love vintage smelling fragrances, but want a modern version of that. This is stunning. This is really good, in my personal opinion. This is my style. This is what I want. Okay, that's my style. Okay, let me compare actually to Alexandria 2. So Alexandria 2 is kind of a cleaner, I mean, obviously they're two different categories. Alexandria 2 is definitely like more of a clean, slightly sweet wood oud. Cruise Sur 1 is definitely more animalic. Please, oh my gosh, please don't get Cruise del Sur 1 thinking you're gonna get Cruise del Sur 2, because they are two different categories entirely. But yeah, that is it for this video. Those are all the fragrances I have to share. 10 fragrances in total. Do let me know if you want me to talk about Xerjoff more in the future, if you want to see more videos like this talking about the samples. I have so many samples from so many brands, and I will say this, that I probably would like to talk about this in like either a video or on the podcast in more detail, but I find that there's so many, there's some pros and cons associated with trying a fragrance out in sample form. Because when you try a fragrance out in sample form, you're kind of, or even in decant, you end up being very unbiased, and you end up just judging the fragrance by the juice. You don't look at the packaging, you don't look at the bottle, because you simply cannot. You just judge the fragrance by the juice, and as can be in so many different categories, you either love it, you like it, or you dislike it. And when it comes to samples, when it comes to trying fragrances out in their sample form, I find that sometimes it's a really easy way for me to identify, okay, this is a fragrance that I would love, and this is a fragrance that I would like, but I don't necessarily need it. And that's why I love sampling so much. And I hope that this video was able to provide you with some perspective. There are definitely some highlights from Xerjoff that I have on my radar at the moment. So, of course, Richwood is a really interesting one. Xerjoff's Cruise del Sur 1 is really interesting. And then the Alexandria 2 Anniversary. Those are my top 3 from this video. Some of those I didn't know about before I talked to a Xerjoff associate. Some of them I did know about. But I definitely do think that Xerjoff has some untapped gems that I would love to talk to you guys about in a future video. Let me know if you like this format. Let me know if you want to see more of this. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.